What can you tell us about Zucker and Zaslav and what Zucker was thinking about his future? Because my understanding is there was a world where Zucker might not have been at CNN much longer anyway.
Well, remember, as you know better than I, Jeff Zucker was planning to step down at the end of last year, chose not to after the merger announcement. He and Zaslav are close friends, not polite friends, they're close friends. And they talk regularly, they golf regularly. But when I interviewed Zaslav in late November at a public forum at the Paley Center, I asked him about CNN, I asked him about Fox. He described Fox News as an advocacy network. And he talked about the importance of facts and suggested there was too much commentary, right-wing commentary, on Fox. So that's his attitude. He's a liberal Democrat, which is unlike John Malone, who's a conservative, mostly Republican, but really a libertarian. The complication in this is that Malone, if you go back to Ted Turner considered John Malone his top investor and advocate. And so he felt that John Malone was actually behind him and behind the news cast that CNN had created. Now, Malone has since criticized CNN for too much advocacy, too much commentary, too little reporting from the world. There's some merit to that. I mean, CNN had always talked about how we cover the world like no one else, maybe the BBC being an exception to that. Well, they don't do it. If you watch CNN regularly, there's much more domestic news on it, much less international news, even though when Afghanistan breaks or the Ukraine breaks, CNN puts some real terrific reporters on the story. So this
I disagree with you, but we can fight that at some other time. Here's what Malone has said on CNBC. This is the crucial soundbite people need to hear to understand where he's coming from. Let's watch.
Fox News, I think, in my opinion, has followed an interesting trajectory of trying to have news. I mean, some actual journalism embedded in a program schedule of all opinions. And I think they've been relatively successful with that, with a service like Bret Baier and Brit Hume before him, that tried to distinguish news from opinion. I would like to see CNN evolve back to the kind of journalism that it started with, and actually have journalists, which would be unique and refreshing.
Many CNN staffers found that to be offensive. Jeff Zucker found that to be quite disturbing, because he's looking at that thinking, what is Discovery's key shareholder going to do to CNN? But here's the thing, right, Ken? Malone's not going to have as much power as he used to have. In this new Discovery deal, in this merged company, he'll just have 1% of the shares, 1% of the votes. He'll just be one member of the board along with 12 or 13 or 14 others. So should CNN anchors and reporters be concerned about John Malone's views of CNN?
Well, of course. I mean, I think what Malone just said, the clip you played, was comical. It's just a joke. It's not real. And he's wrong. And if you listen to what Zaslav told me at that public forum in November, he disagrees with Malone. Now, Malone is his business mentor and an important shareholder. Will David Zaslav go off the Malone reservation on this? He says basically what he said in November was that he would go. Will he? Question. I don't know the answer to that. If I was at CNN and I was an employee and I love working under Jeff Zucker for understandable reasons, I would be concerned. There's no question that David Zaslav, as he said to me in November at a public forum, believes that there's too much commentary on CNN. And if you watch CNN, the anchors are much more animated with opinions than they were when Ted Turner started the network back some 30 decades ago. And so I would be a little nervous if I was at CNN, yes.
And Ken, last question. What's the big question you'd be asking in the weeks ahead?
I would want to ask David Zaslav, do you agree with what the comical things that John Malone said about Fox News? That's certainly one thing. I also would want to know several different things. I would want to know, apparently what Cuomo's lawyer is alleging is that he was fired for not telling the truth to Jeff Zucker, which is why Zucker said he fired him. Is he claiming that Zucker did not tell the truth, either in the length of time he had been involved with Alice and Gullis, or did he give some private advice to Andrew Cuomo, which came up in your last segment? Those are really important questions that may or may not get some ventilation in the coming weeks.